Welcome to the channel, guys. My name is Jess. So Bitcoin's recent retest of 76k has placed it in a pretty critical position, retesting major macro bearish indicators and triggers. Could this move mark the bottom for 2025's bearish price action? Let's jump into the charts, talk about the recent price action, what it means, and find out. Before we dive in, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel to get regular Bitcoin analysis every Wednesday and Saturday, and join my free Telegram for more regular updates. If you're a trader and you're interested in my VIP channel, be sure to message me on Telegram to get more details. VIP gives you exclusive access to my personal trading setups with exact entry points, targets, and stop losses. Alrighty guys, so jumping into the charts, let's talk about the recent price action on Bitcoin before we dive into our analysis. So we can see here, Bitcoin's had a little bit of a rough run the last couple of days. From Sunday all the way to yesterday afternoon, we saw Bitcoin continue this downward trajectory and going as low as 76.5 thousand, just as we talked about in my last video. We lost that short time frame uptrend we talked about in that last video, and that essentially sent the price back down to that range low and the base of that support zone, ending at the end of this VIP gap at 76.5. So that was tapped perfectly. Since then though, we can see Bitcoin has had quite a recovery. Our recent daily candle close has been bullish. We've not only printed a green candle, but we've also engulfed the prior bearish candle from Monday. And it looks like we could be headed in a little bit of an upwards trajectory on the short time frame, which we'll dive into at the end of the video. Taking a quick look at market data, we can see it's been a brutal last couple of 2 weeks, I would say. Liquidations have been high for quite some time now. Just yesterday, we saw a pretty equal skew of both long and short liquidations. Open interest, as we can kind of expect from this bullish price action, is creeping back upwards. It's up 3% right now. Now, before we dive into the analysis, I do really quickly want to talk about the upcoming economic data we have as well. So tonight at 10:30 for those of us in Australia, I don't know what time that is in the US, probably in the morning sometime, we do have inflation and CPI data coming out. Now, that is super important this time. I mean, it's always important, but this time it's particularly interesting and important because if we take a look at the forecast, it's actually forecasted to be lower than the previous rates for both month-on-month and year-on-year inflation. So that is quite bullish for the risk asset market. If inflation's moving in the right direction and we actually meet those forecasted sort of, I guess, expectations, which the market should have priced in, it's very likely then that at some point, if we continue on that trajectory, we'll see those rate cuts as we move towards the Fed's 2% inflation goal, right? That is essentially what we're waiting for, to finally get those rate cuts and to make the cost of debt cheaper and send the risk asset market generally upwards when that happens, right? So the overarching sort of economic landscape right now is potentially pivoting, right? Hinging on tonight's news and obviously what happens in the next FOMC meeting. We can have a look at how far away that is. So if we hop over onto FedWatch and take a look at the upcoming FOMC meeting, we can see that it's just over a week away, and it is at this meeting that we are very likely to receive more information about how the Fed has interpreted the CPI data and inflation data that's coming out tonight. Currently, the probabilities for a rate cut are still very, very low, sitting around 4%, but these things sort of change really, really quickly as new information comes in. So for example, at tonight's CPI, I guess news release or inflation news release, this is something to be watching out for as well. So with all that in mind and sort of keeping a tab on all those things, let's dive into the charts and talk about the price action and the position of Bitcoin after this recent drop. If we go ahead and zoom out and take a look at the weekly chart, we can see that the recent crash actually took Bitcoin to retest this really major dynamic level of support, the 50 EMA on the weekly time frame. Now the 50 EMA, quite similar to the 200 EMA on the daily chart, has historically marked, I guess, macro trends for Bitcoin. And this retest of the 50 here is really significant because generally, as it represents a macro trend, dropping below that generally signals I guess, or confirms a bear market or a bearish high time frame continuation. For example, if we take a look at historical price action, we were in this massive sort of channel of consolidation over here from February to October last year. We saw that retest twice, and it was, I guess, that close, the weekly close, being above that 50 MA that prevented the eventual loss of this channel and continued bearish descent, right? In fact, we ended up reversing, bouncing on those levels and breaking out of our bull flag to, create this 100-day or nearly 100-day bullish rally over here. And looking further back, we can see evidence of the same sort of price action, bottoming here at 16,000, that push above 50 EMA, that marked the start of accumulation. And once again over here as well, we saw a little bit of a deviation here in Bitcoin, which I've spoken about many, many times on the channel, but we can see that sort of drop below 50 EMA, failure to sustain above, and then bearish descent on the high time frame over and over again. If you want to look at BLX, you can see more evidence of that as well. So we can see we're retesting a really crucial level here, right? And while it sort of is a red flag, of course, we don't want Bitcoin to be retesting those critical levels. Support is support until it's not. And as we retest those super important critical levels, they also mark potentials for a extensive reversal for Bitcoin, right? As we retest those levels and they remain as support, it could be the end of the bearish descent for Bitcoin here and mark the start of a potentially bullish rest of 2025. And if we also take a look here on the weekly chart at the RSI, we can see Bitcoin is retesting a major horizontal on this oscillator at 44.41. Ever since Bitcoin sort of exited the bear market back in 2022, and we saw the start of accumulation, the oscillator, the RSI, has remained above 44.41 this entire time. That has been sort of the baseline for bullish momentum across this entire time frame. So as we retest RSI at 44.1, once again, very similar to on the price action itself, we want to make sure that Bitcoin remains above that level. And conversely, if we see the RSI and momentum drop below that sort of baseline for, this sort of accumulation bull market phase, it again provides more confirmation that we are headed in for a high time frame bearish descent for Bitcoin. So over there on the weekly chart, we could see our sort of warning signs for Bitcoin and how it's sort of on the edge of a cliff right now, right? Now, if we move over onto a daily chart, we can start to look for what's actually going to facilitate or signal a meaningful reversal on Bitcoin. And meaningful means that it's actually going to last a significant period of time, right? It's not a fake out, it's not a dead cat bounce, it's a genuine reversal that is actually going to, potentially last on a high time frame for Bitcoin. So here on the daily chart, we can see a couple really crucial things. First of all, starting on the price action, we can see that the catalyst for this major drop here back down to 76,000 was, first of all, the loss of the 200 EMA. And I mentioned it just very briefly on that weekly time frame segment, but the 200 EMA is in similarity to the 50 EMA on the weekly time frame, sort of a trigger for bearish descending price action on the high time frame, and otherwise a marker for a high time frame bullish trend on Bitcoin as well, right? And historically, once again, very similar to the 50 EMA, falling below the 200 EMA without any other sort of structural supports marks a really big red flag for Bitcoin. So we've dropped below 200 once again, and we're currently sitting at support at $76,000. So what we need to do in this current rally from Bitcoin, if we are able to sustain it on the short time frame, is push back above that 200 EMA, right? And of course, above this downtrend that we've exhibited across the entirety of 2025. And even aside from the structural trend line, we have to stop creating this pattern of forming lower highs here on the charts, what we've been essentially doing the entirety of 2025 so far, right? So Bitcoin needs to break above one of those change of character levels to actually flip these charts to being bullish. Now, the current key resistance that we have here then on the daily chart, aside from the 200 EMA, is $91,000 to $92,500, right? That is what we need to see on the daily chart to signal a meaningful reversal here for Bitcoin. Alongside that, if we move over to take a look at the RSI, we can see this downtrend here as well, right? We've been losing momentum the entire time that Bitcoin has transversed between $91,000 and $110,000, right? Regardless of these deviation highs or these high highs, whatever that was happening later on in December, momentum has been dropping. And once again, that is something that Bitcoin needs to stop doing. We need to see bullish momentum build back up, ideally pushing back above this equal high at 51.3 to actually signal that buyers are coming in with enough strength to flip these charts. Now, until we see any of that happen, these charts, or the daily time frame chart, is still definitively bearish, right? And if we continue in a bearish descent and we fall below 76.5, this base of support, the next available level that we have is down at 74,000, or 73.7 to 71.7. And that is a level marked out by these prior highs back in February all the way to October, when we retested these sort of that really crucial level of resistance in the middle of our descending channel structure. So if we continue in this bearish descent on the daily time frame, we fall below those levels, and that continues up until Monday, we might potentially fall below the 50 EMA as well, right? So we've got a really important little segment of price action right now, and Bitcoin is in quite a critical position. So let's dive into the short time frame then and talk about what's more immediately likely over the next couple of days and what to be watching out for there. So if we zoom into the hourly chart, the short time frame, we can see that currently Bitcoin is consolidating or chopping between two major levels. Of course, our low being $76.5 thousand. We've developed a little bit of an uptrend here starting at that low, and we are currently retesting a major level of resistance at $83.5 thousand. Ranges from 83 to 83.7, and we can see it is an equal high coinciding with the sort of prior high in our short time frame downtrend right here. We can see these sort of lower highs developing over the last week of price action, and which will coincidentally act as a level of resistance on the way back up. And we can see that level acting as sort of a huge trigger in the past. We have support, change of character, support, so on and so forth, support, etc., right? So such a significant level is going to be, of course, a pretty big level of resistance, but breaking above it on the short time frame, just above it, we can see we have a little bit of a volume gap that should take Bitcoin back above the 200 EMA and up to retest $85,000. Now, if we continue in this short time frame uptrending trajectory and we break above resistance, it's very likely then that, in changing through these really crucial levels, Bitcoin will break through those really important levels on the daily chart as well. So the 200 EMA, that sits around $84,000, and of course the prior high at 91,000, this level over here. Now taking a look at the RSI once again, we can see, I'm so sorry, I just got interrupted by a fly. We'll just pretend that didn't happen. If we take a look at the RSI, we can see we have our corresponding RSI uptrend, right? We have our validation for the short time frame uptrend here with currently 3 points of retest. Now, if we break below that RSI uptrend, that is going to be the first warning sign that this rally is going to be unsustained, and we're heading back towards $76,000. And of course, below that, so on and so forth, 74 and back into that high time frame at parallel channel range, right, ending at 53,000. Before I wrap up the video, I do really quickly want to touch on this 4-hour chart. Just one more thing to note about the short time frame price action, and the reason why this current level of resistance at 83,000 is so important is because if we take a look at the 4-hour chart, we can see we've printed higher highs here on the RSI, right? And with higher highs on the RSI, in order to not see hidden bearish divergence, we also want to see high highs on the price action, which, if we take a look, is not currently happening. We're printing equal highs, potentially even slightly lower highs, which is hidden bearish divergence, showing us that despite the fact that buyers are creeping in and increasing in strength, it is still not enough to push through the sell wall that exists at this level. So over the next, we've got, 2 hours left to this close, but we've still got potential many 4-hour closes before we retest our uptrend. We want to make sure that 82K is broken above. Otherwise, if not, and we continue to reject off those equal highs, this hidden bearish divergence is very likely to play out, and we will head back down towards 76,000, with levels of short time frame significance being 79 and then 76.5. Alrighty guys, that is a wrap on the analysis today. Thank you for tuning in for another episode. If you guys liked the video or you learned something, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel to get regular Bitcoin analysis every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And join my free Telegram channel for more regular updates. If you're a trader and you're interested in my VIP channel, don't forget to contact me on Telegram for more details. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!